Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are back on the first dev server for updates 1.98 and it's time to have a look at the Mirage IIIC. This is a new supersonic vehicle that is coming to the French tech tree in updates 1.98 and I know a lot of people have been looking forward to it for many different reasons. The Mirage IIIC comes in its original configuration and what you find on it is, well, pretty simple. First of all, looking at the armor profile, it doesn't have one right now and I'm not sure it will have one in the future, but it does, at least from its X-ray, have a radar, has access to, of course, a ton of fuel in the leading wings and also in the wings themselves, and a little bit here. The engine is the SNECMA, which is a wonderful way of saying it, 8R9B jet engine, and it gives you an afterburner thrust of 6090 kgf, and to be honest, I thought the Mirage was going to be a little bit faster at sea level. And I don't mean top speed, I just mean general acceleration. And I'll kind of show you that, later on. There's also a little bit more fuel under here, showing how much of a guzzler this engine is. Well, just like a lot of these jet engines are. When we have a look at its other characteristics, it has two 30mm DEFAs in the front. These are right here on the sides of the vehicle, which shoot forwards, and they each have 125 rounds each, totaling 250. And also, the main reason why the Mirage is interesting in War Thunder is it has a ton of different secondary armament options for pretty much anything you'd want. So we'll start off with the general bombs because that's normally the easiest to do. So you have two 250s and then you have two 400s. These can get added to a bunch of different configurations, whether it be ones with certain air-to-air missiles or rockets, and what you find is in the majority of these secondary armaments you have access to stuff such as sidewinders and also the main cannons, and so you have AIM-9Bs, then you have stuff such as the Matra R530E, which has a launch range of 15 kilometers and a maximum overload of 15 G. That's the big old missile in the center that you can see right here. It's an absolutely huge air-to-air missile, and you can also bring along the two of them if you really feel like it. So you can bring them on the wings, and you can see how just big they are. And the difference between the R550s and the R530s, they are different. The R550s have a maximum overload of 30 Gs. I think this is the biggest in the game. They have a launch range of 10 kilometers as well, and an explosive mass of 9.6. So I don't think you're getting away from these if somebody actually puts these on. And then you can run stuff like the R530E, which is that large one that we talked about with the AIM-9Bs, or you can run the R530E with some R550s, which probably is the better idea. Then there's a bunch of configurations for ground attack, so you can bring some SNEBs along with your air-to-airs, or you can use some AS Nords. So yes, the Mirage gets some AS Nords, but they're not the normal ones you used to on stuff like the G91s, the AS20s. Instead, they are AS30s. They're bigger, they're badder, they're bruisier, they have a lot of power behind them, and you can see what a chonker. Now, the only issue with this one is you can see I don't think it actually says straight on it, yeah, but I'm sure that'll get fixed when the model is redone for either the second dev server or live server. It is just kind of funny that it hasn't been put on straight. But yes, it does have access to Nord ATGMs. Well, they are called Nord ATGMs, but they are, AGMs. At the end of the day, they are mouse controlled, they are keyboard controlled, and they are incredibly powerful. So watch out for them at a ground battle near you. We're going to personally try the air-to-air ones, just because it's a lot more funner to do so, just to try and show you the capabilities, mainly of these ones that you see right here, the 30, the ones with a maximum overload of 30 degrees. Now, one thing to note about the Mirage, first of all, is its performance, as I said, is really not what I was expecting. So, when a lot of people talk about the Mirage, I feel like they talk about it in this mythical way. There's this idea that it kind of takes over the battlefield. This idea that it is as strong as anything can be. But when I've flown this out in realistic, in a test drive, and in a mission editor battles, it doesn't feel like that at all. The acceleration doesn't seem too great, the overall maneuverability of the machine doesn't feel great at all, so I feel like I might be missing something when it comes to it, or maybe it's just me being silly because of the secondary armaments. It does have the standard delta wing, the standard delta wing things that all of the delta wings have, which they have this Dorito effect that I call it, where the elevator, what'll happen is you'll set it up to go to like a single place, and then after about 20 degrees it'll snap and be like, okay, we're gonna chill. So what I mean by this is whoop, bang, and then it just gets kind of stuck. And I don't know why it does it. I don't know why this is just a delta wing thing, but it's something that all the delta wings do in the game, and I'm wondering if it is something which just happens with delta wings, but it is kind of odd. So the first missile that gets fired out of these three is the big one in the center, and it looks like we're not going to get a lock. Hello? There we go. So the big one gets fired, and the big one does something interesting. You see it does that characteristic wobble. So for some reason this missile has a really funny wobble on it, and it wobbles towards the target, but kind of like a helter-skelter, if you've ever been on one of them, where you go round and round and round, or like a corkscrew or a merry-go-round before it hits the targets. And I've always just found that kind of funny. But with these second ones, these are the business. These are the ones which you put on when everything else is just kind of not ready to go, or not sorted out, and what you do is you kind of wait until you're in range and then you go. And another thing I do want to mention is, if you've seen the F104 video, you can see why I'm saying that this thing doesn't have great acceleration. At 4,000 meters, it's really struggling to get up there. It's really struggling to get to that 700, really struggling to get, to the 800, and it will eventually get to those high speeds, but the time it takes them to do so, compared to something like the F104, or anything, at around the 9397 10.0 BR, just seems really odd to me that this thing doesn't have it. The cockpit is very simplistic and very nice, very crisp, as we've talked about before. Has a nice light in it as well, a beautiful red one, and a wonderful radar display in the center. But everything is simple. Even the site itself is incredibly simple, and it's going to be easy to use, and we're looking more and more like DCS every day, which is, a compliment, because DCS is such a beautiful looking game at the end of the day. Seeing War Thunder finally match it over these past few years when it comes to the development of their cockpits and development of their vehicles is just insane. So there goes the 30. You can see it's already whipping around, and I would be amazed if that missed, and it's never going to miss, so yeah. I just feel like the general acceleration of this machine just isn't on par with what I've seen from other supersonic jets. It's something which is very, very odd for me to see, and very odd for me to say as well. And the extreme overload, it can pull 11 Gs if it wants to. Ooh. If it really wants to, but it's definitely a bit of a struggle at the end there. But I suppose I was expecting more. I was expecting this plane, which wouldn't take over the game. I was expecting this plane, which would be very good at, its general uses. And what I get is a plane which feels kind of standard. It doesn't feel like there's anything that's interesting about it. Now that we have delta wing designs, we've had the Draken for a while. We've had stuff such as the wonderful, I can't remember his name, the delta wing design for the British, which I can't even remember right now. But yeah, we've had that, and we've had the Draken for a very long time. We've had all of these, interesting mirages, and I've got a feeling the AI doesn't understand how mirages work. We're going to hear a big clatter very soon. The Javelin was the vehicle I'm thinking of. Oh my god. Okay. Well then. There goes my team. Well, yeah, and for me, now, when I look at this vehicle, I think about its turn rate. Its turn rate is okay. It's nothing special, though. It's nothing out of the ordinary. When I think about its speed, I would say it's lower than usual compared to other very top-tier planes. So the bit that makes it stand out is this armament that we have here. And the armament is really cool. But we have stuff in the game that counters that armament, right? We have stuff like flares, we have stuff such as maneuverability, maybe not 30G maneuverability, but then as I said, once flares become more and more prevalent, especially with the more meta vehicles, it's very hard to look at it and think, okay, everything is going to be fine when it comes to vehicles like this. And I'm happy that there now is in-game a French supersonic vehicle, which is actually French. You know, not just used by France, but a proper job French supersonic vehicle. That is incredibly awesome. And since it's the Mirage, something which has had a very, very wonderful history in the world, that's also great. That's absolutely astounding. Just like as I talked about with other machines such as the AMX-13 M24, I'm happy to see these vehicles because of their historical nature. But that doesn't mean every vehicle has to be competitive. It doesn't mean every vehicle has to be, you know, the cream of the crop. And when I look at the Mirage, maybe it might be at 9.0 if it stays at 9.0. But I feel like if this is one of those things, okay. If this is one of those things which, you know, goes higher, which I think it will just because of its missiles, it may be left in a very awkward place where it's hurting because of the fact that it has these crazy missiles and it doesn't have the crazy performance to be able to back them up. So I'm really hoping that I'm wrong. I'm really hoping that this thing comes to the game and it's very, very good, and it takes on all the competition and then annihilates everything with these missiles and with its general maneuverability and not with its speed. But if I am right, it just kind of sucks for its legacy, you know, as one of those really interesting, really cool French planes, which is different to everything else that we've seen previous. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Eugene's Terry, Daniel Stanton, Blackie, Elove Goat, Jay Wilt, Martinez, B. Young, Chris Giltnane, Trigger Hippie, Ambrosius McClellan, and also Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.